Welcome to Season 2 of Making Pondo and Talking Pondo. Talking Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty give each other a film to watch and talk about them in detail. Some episodes will include a special guest. Making Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty talk to people they have worked with and discuss their experiences on set.
Today on Making Pondo, we talk with Tad Sallee, who played Tucker in Revenge of Zoe.
All right, Marty, we're back.
And we are back.
Making Pondo.
Yeah, another episode of Making Pondo, where we talk to people we've made stuff with. A clever title, right?
Yeah. Hey, who do we have with us this week?
So I'm Marty Catola, as always. We got Cliff Campbell over here, and our guest this week is...
Hey, my name is Tad Sallee, and I've had the pleasure of working with these two gentlemen on a film called Revenge of Zoe.
Oh, yeah, you might remember him in that movie. He was...
That's right.
Tucker, the jerk boyfriend.
The jerk boyfriend.
Yeah, there's a little acting there. Actually, it wasn't too bad.
You looked the part, but you were anything but. I'll put it to you that way. You looked like
a snap.
Yeah, we were like, we need a good-looking guy. Kind of looks like a frat kid. That's him. Okay, great. But you were the complete opposite of your character, so it's very fun.
I remember you and Julie were just cracking each other up in that car. We were trying to get the shots, and we were going to pull up, and then somebody would start laughing. Or it was a good time. Yeah. She
spoke fondly of working with you and that time in the car. And we still laugh about there was a red Sunfire, if I remember, a Pontiac Sunfire that you had. And it had roll-up windows on it. And
that's right.
I don't think Julie had ever seen roll-up windows, and so she was both fascinated and she found it one of the most hilarious things. Like we have outtakes of her like laughing as she's rolling up the window. I'm like, well, we can't use that one. Well, okay, is there one where she's just kind of grinning? Yes, there it is. We use that one instead.
It adds to the comedy bit, right? You know, because it's not like fast. You got to like wind it like 100 times
right.
To go all the way up. And it's like, okay, this is going to take the full take here. Thank God we're shooting on film.
Yeah, the take action that we used, she looks like she's sort of rolling her eyes like, Jesus, why don't you have electric windows? You know, kind of like that. But it's actually her kind of laughing. It's really funny.
Yeah, those are good times. I just Marty, you had sent me the film a couple of days ago, and I rewatched parts of it. Yeah, it just brought back some good memories. We shot that 6-7 years ago now?
Yeah, 2017.
2017.
I didn't think it's been that long.
I can't believe that. It seems like yesterday we had you on set, and there's a great photo of you and me. You're in the car, and I'm leaning on the windowsill talking to you, and it looks very directory of me. It's like you're really an actor, and I'm really a director, and we're having a good conversation about what your scene is. But I'm sure it's just me telling you a joke or us jibber jabbering back and forth or something like that.
Talking about the windows. Here, can you roll up the window?
Probably making jokes about the window. Yeah.
And because the two of you were in the car and we had no way of monitoring the sound inside the car, it was the only shot in the movie where we just kind of had to trust that you two hit your lines and your mark, because we couldn't tell until later when we watched it back. It was just like, did you get it? Yeah, we got it. Okay, moving on. And it was there, so.
Yeah, that was a really cool shoot. I remember. I don't remember. Did we shoot it in the summer? I vaguely remember.
I think it was in the spring. It was like spring. Okay. Yeah. So it wasn't too hot out, but it was still pretty sunny and bright.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem with shooting in Arizona. It's just obviously it's hot, very bright. So shooting obviously interiors is pretty much the way to go. And it reminds me that comic book shop, is that still there? That was a really cool place.
Yeah, like many of our locations, that's another one that's gone. His business didn't survive the pandemic. We didn't even get to shoot there for the follow-up movie. We had to build our own new version of that store. So
yep,
it's a shame. Yeah. Seems like those small business, especially arts and crafts, video games, comics, just couldn't really survive the pandemic, which is a shame, because some of my favorite locations. There was one on it's on the west side of Tucson, Grant and kind of like Sweetwater. There was a really cool little video game store, and it just went under because of COVID too. Just couldn't keep up.
Yeah. We shot in Charlie's. We shot 3 movies in Charlie's comic book stores, and we really wanted to shoot that last one. I know we tried. I think at one point, because at one point Charlie due to COVID was like, no, we were going to shoot there. And he was like, no, COVID's going out of control. I don't
Yeah,
want
it was
anybody
like
in the
March
store.
18th or something, and he was
Yeah.
like, no.
And I think even Jeff called him up and like offered him some money and sweet talk him and was like,
yeah,
look,
we went over
you don't
there.
even have to be there. Just give us the keys and we'll take the health risk and we'll go in and shoot it. And you just be somewhere else. And he was like, nope.
Well, we
not
did
gonna let you
manage
guys
to
do that.
convince him, but
Oh,
as
that's right.
it went on, the actors
right.
eventually hit their breaking point.
That's
With
right.
About
Yeah.
4 days left to shoot, everybody was like, no, we don't want to risk this anymore. So we had to wait about 1.5 years to finish.
Yeah, I remember you walking up. I remember you walking up to me that night. I think it was the night that we were shooting at the liquor store, and you said, "Well, Bradford's done." He says he's not going to do. He can't take the risk anymore. And it was like, well, if our main actor's done, then we're done. There's nothing else to shoot because I think the rest of it was just all him. So
yeah.
Jeez. When did you start shooting that roughly?
Oh, we started shooting it in March of 2020.
Oh,
so we got shut down almost immediately.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I mean, it was like I remember. Going back, I rented a truck because I didn't want to fly. It was that scary, it was that time when nobody knew how bad COVID was or how virulent it was, and all we knew is people would get it and they'd have to go to the hospital and go on a ventilator and die possibly, right? And so there was a lot of misinformation, and so I remember calling Enterprise, and I was like, "Can I rent a car one way from Tucson to Oklahoma City?" They're like, "You sure can." I'm like, how much is it? She's like, I think it's like, when she looked it up, she's like, you can have a Dodge Ram pickup truck for $37 a day one way. Are you kidding me? So I think I paid, it was more in gas to get there than it was to rent the truck. Because they were at that point, they're just giving them out. Because this is before everybody had figured out, oh, I'll just rent a car, and I'll douse it in Lysol before I get in it and I'll be safe, But yeah, it was just the airports were dead. The streets were dead. You'll see once you get to see Love Song, we sent Jeff and the crew out with Rachel, the girl who plays Frenzy, and they went out and shot at all these places that you would normally just be packed, that were just dead zones. The U of A, Science Center, all these places, they look amazing because they're empty. But, that's the only time we were ever going to be like getting those shots. It was pretty crazy.
So how was picking that up a year later with the actors and the talent, minus like, I assume hair's probably changed, people look a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a struggle in the, in filmmaking, post-production wise?
I think if it had gone any longer, but we stretched it about almost 1.5 years, and that was kind of like, we have to do this now or people really are going to start looking different. And thankfully you look at the final product, and now I'm even starting to forget when what was shot when. It all kind of blends together, thankfully. But it was tricky.
Most of the news store stuff was shot at the end, and then the liquor store stuff behind the liquor store. What we ended up doing was we had one of the actors we thought had COVID. He called us he's like, I'm sick, and I think I have COVID. We're like, oh great, because you're supposed to shoot tonight. Okay, so we ended up blocking the scenes and just shot everything without him. And then brought him back, a year and a half later, stuck him in the exact place, put an actor in the opposite space, shot over the shoulders, and boom, just cut it in, and it cuts perfectly. You can't even tell.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty proud of that, actually, because like if I told you, find the scene where all 4 actors aren't together in the scene, you wouldn't be able to. You might pick it out if you really knew, how scenes are put together and how they're shot, but I think a normal viewer would just be like, I don't know, that one. So I was pretty proud of that.
That's cool. That's like the Vin Diesel Rock, scenario where it's like they're not going to work together. So you're going to film their scenes separately. And
when I heard that, that's one of my first thoughts. Was like, I could probably do that. Yeah, I could handle that. I could figure that out. We've blocked something like that before.
Creatively, it adds fun to filmmaking, right? As long as you can get it right and figure out the logistics and post production, everything lines up. I mean, those are kind of cool filmmaking techniques.
We had the other shots and we were watching them in our phone so we could line up the eye line to where, okay, this is where Eric was standing and looking, and because without having the other footage on location when we were doing the pickup shots, there's a chance that maybe an eyeball would have been looking the wrong direction or whatever. But the worst thing we have is like a slight bit of sound change. When the shots change, you can hear the little bit of the background hisses. But if that's the worst thing in the whole movie for about 2 seconds, that's pretty good.
Definitely.
So how did you find us to do Revenge.
Yeah.
That's a great question. You know, I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think I got an email or Eric had reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have this project. I think, you know, maybe you could be a good fit." I don't remember if I auditioned via self tape or if it was an in person. It's been
I
seven,
think
8 years.
we were at that other it's over by Aviation Highway. I had a little place where I was doing auditions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay, I
stuff
vaguely
over
remember
there.
that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then I think came in, did some lines, and you guys liked me enough to offer me Tucker, which was pretty exciting. Um, and then I don't remember how soon after we shot, but I think it wasn't too long after that we shot my scene, or you guys shot the movie.
Mm-hmm. It was probably only maybe a month or so before we went into
Mhm.
that one pretty quick. We hit the
Yeah.
ground running on it in January of 2017, and then by April we were already on set. So yeah, that came together pretty quick.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that was a fun shoot. That was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
and
I really look back at that. Don't hardly have any
you were
bad
with
days.
us about what 3 or 4 days of that shoot, something like that.
If I remember correctly, right? Yeah. And it's always interesting because like when I was rewatching the film, I'm like trying to like obviously try to find my scenes to kind of refresh my memory about these takes that we did, and you shoot it all like pretty tight, and then my parts spread out amongst 30 minutes of the film, and it's just so cool seeing filmmaking happen like that. Like you'd never be able to tell. um, but yeah, we shot it, I think, for those 3 or 4 days, and I remember just being so like enthused by all the comics in the store that like I didn't want to do my job. I just wanted to go in and like look at all of the comics, and like, because I'm not like the biggest comic person, but when I went in there and I'm like seeing everything, I'm like, maybe I could be into comics. This could be like another thing for my collection here that I could add to it. I don't need any more, but
I was gonna say, yeah, looking behind you, it doesn't seem like you would need anything else to collect, my friend.
I can't fit anything back here anymore.
No.
I'm my lady's just getting upset at me. I'm gonna have to move things to the
amazing.
living room.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a great shoot. I remember it was a lot of fun. Everybody was like, very, very positive. The improv that we did in a couple of the takes, I think made it into the movie, and how the guys would pick on me and my character. That was just so much fun. Going back and seeing them kind of improv these lines and throw some insults out at me, and me trying to come back and then come back with something else, and I would just walk away with my tail between my legs, basically.
Yeah, that hug is my favorite part. Where they
and
finally,
we shot that.
hey, bring it in here, give us a hug. Yeah, yeah, we shot that at night, and then our DOP went and later and shot a plate of the store during daylight, and put a and basically rotoscope. I think he rotoscoped a plate in.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so yeah, so that scene where you're like, hey, get off of me, you weirdos, and you go out of the store. That's all a plate.
Even Julie was like, I thought we had shot that at night, and we're like, yeah, special effects.
We did special effects.
Yeah, it's crazy because like if you hadn't told me that, I probably would have assumed we shot it during the day, and that just goes to the extent of obviously your editor and the power of filmmaking. You can kind of change perspectives a little bit, which is kind of crazy because like, well, are you sure you didn't shoot this during the day? Like, look at the scene. Oh yeah, we definitely shot this during the day.
Yeah, and that's Bobby Francis was our DOP and our FX guy. He did a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
He really lovingly fixed a lot of things that we were like, can you fix this? He's like, yes.
Yeah, we didn't realize until late in the editing that it was like, we were, because that was an 11-hour day, and I know people who do big budget movies are like, oh wow, 11 hours, but for us that was quite a bit, and we should have shot that one during the daytime, we realized, but maybe we fixed it in post, the thing you never want to hear, but we managed. So.
Yeah. Well, when you're in 11-hour days and you don't have we don't do camp chairs on sets and things like that, and so there's we don't. Our crew takes a lot of breaks, but Marty and I tend to move because there's not a lot of people in like department heads and different things like that. Marty and I tend to have to move around a lot to talk to okay, how are we gonna light it? How are we gonna? Does it sound good? Oh, okay, actors, are you okay? Okay, is food? So everybody else is kind of like, well, I'm gonna chill over here on the side, and it's like, well, we can't really do that. So 11-hour days for us are kind of exhausting. I imagine if you a 12-hour day when you've got a union crew and camp chairs and craft services and all that, it might be a little bit easier.
Well, we had the advantage of being in a comic book store while we're waiting.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
Yeah.
And I remember we were taking a look through some Superman comics and some stuff that I hadn't seen before, and just really enjoying the downtime.
Well, you guys set up camp over in the corner. Like if I remember, I would always look over to the corner and over by where Elisa was doing sound with her her rig, and there'd always be 2 or 3 actors over there just kind of chilling, drinking water, hanging out, maybe like you said, reading comics or talking or whatever. So it was almost like its own little camp. It was weird.
Yeah, it was a good time.
So, acting's probably not your main thing, but you do a lot of filmmaking. So you've been involved in, what is it, documentarian work is your main other field of interest, or is it more like photography? Or
Yeah, I'm kind of a hodgepodge mix. I started when I was very young. My mom bought me the VHS tapes of Indiana Jones, the trilogy, and I was like, "Oh, filmmaking! This sounds cool." And when you're young, you can cast yourself usually as all of your background characters and your lead characters and your family members. So it just kind of transpired.
Yes.
Yeah, it just kind of transpired that it was going to be me and my brother acting. So we did a couple of YouTube videos very young, and so kind of one in the same. My love has always just been for filmmaking in general, whether it be behind the camera or in front of the camera. So now I own my own video production business. So I do everything from weddings to documentaries to commercial projects, whatever kind of keeps me busy and stuff that I really feel like I'm gonna work well on. As far as like a creative eye, I tend to not do like music videos, and I really try to find myself into projects that are really going to call out to me. So right now I've been working on a documentary for the past 5 years called Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold, about a video game property called Postal, but it's been developed by this Tucson company called Running with Scissors. They've been in Tucson since the late 90s. And what transpired amongst from 97 to now, they've made 4 Postal games, but it was the most controversial game of all time, coming out late 90, 97, 98. And obviously then Doom came out, then Grand Theft Auto and Night Trap and a ton of other super violent video games came out that kind of proceeded and became more popular. Obviously Grand Theft Auto became what it is today, which is the biggest video game property of all time. But Postal went to Congress. It became kind of this poster child for video game violence. So anytime there was a school shooting, or anytime there was something that violent happened, there were a ton of shootings at actual post offices. So the term Going Postal kind of came from that, and they thought, we should use that, which in turn added more controversy. And then they've had sequels.
There's a movie of it, right?
There's a movie directed by famous German director Uwe Boll, who is a very, very crazy guy, awesome guy, very friendly. He's made some arguably bad movies, and I think he can attest to this. But they're enjoyable for what they are. They are a good popcorn flick, especially good if you're drunk. And so we had the chance to chat with him.
There are movies out there that the more you drink, the better they get. Hot Tub Time Machine is a perfect example. You can start that movie sober, and if you can get a buzz on by the time you get to the end of it, you go, "That's a pretty good movie. I kind of enjoyed that." But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. I would agree. Yeah, movies definitely get better, and hopefully, this film that we've been working on, this documentary, is one that you don't have to get drunk for to enjoy. But I can
right.
The majority of films that they become arguably better.
Some of them have this magical pop property, this power where they transform. They're not very good, and then you start drinking, you're like, this is actually a pretty good movie.
I'd say
not all of them.
Oppenheimer might be one where
really?
like might not want to be drunk for that, because it's like that's a 3-hour long movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. Yeah, you're gonna be gone by the time that one's over. Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned Postal, because and that term Going Postal, because when I was a kid, the shooting in the Edmond post office in 1986 happened, where that guy walked in and he killed a bunch of people. I think he killed 14 people. And so I'm interested. I wonder if the game Postal or that phrase is kind of tied into that or spawns from that or has some sort of corollary. But I remember that as a kid. I think I was 12 or 13 years old when it was first time I'd ever heard about like a mass shooting. It was a very shocking thing. So
Yeah, that's really where the term kind of originated from, and so when Running with Scissors called their game Postal, they got a letter from the official post office, Postmaster General, saying, "Hey, your game is in very poor taste.
Yeah.
We encourage you to change the title of the game."
Mhm.
Ultimately, they didn't. They kind of shook it off and laughed at it. But yeah, I mean, was it in great taste? Who knows? I think it obviously added to the controversy and made it to become what it is today, which they have now made 4 games and a spin-off, and obviously the movie. And so,
well, the games are kind of known for their off-color, dark kind of humor, anyways, right? Like that's part of it. It's like Leisure Suit Larry, right? Like Leisure Suit Larry is this sort of like if you play that game, the comedy's going to be kind of gross and sexually out of bounds or whatever, and not appropriate, right? So that type of thing, where like that's the kind of game that you kind of bought in to play. Like, well, I don't know why you're complaining, right? Like this is the game.
Man, Leisure Suit Larry, they need to bring that back. That was a
right.
That was a fun, just kind of like to experience it, right? Just to see what this game.
Well, I mean, there's no other games out there where, and Marty and I have talked about this in our podcast, where it's like the 80s were obsessed with losing your virginity. Like the 80s were obsessed with like you've got to lose your virginity, you got to have sex. Well, you're not even a person until you've done that. And Leisure Suit Larry basically took that and put it in a video game of all things, right? Where it was just like the entire point was to get this poor loser laid, which has just never been. I can't think of another video game franchise like it.
I remember the Xbox game of it.
Yes,
years ago.
It was where he like goes to college.
You'd always get up to when you beat the level, but then it would never happen. That was the whole joke of the game. My favorite part of that one was you'd go to the lab, and the monkey there that lived in the lab would be drunk, and you had to play quarters against it, and the controller would make it simulate like you were drunk and slowing your movement.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
This is weird little mini games they have in it.
So Ted, I like to ask this question. As an actor, I mean, have you done a lot of acting? Was that your first time? Have you done other parts and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to do a handful of other projects, and now I do a lot of commercial acting. For stuff that comes especially locally to Arizona.
Gotcha.
When a film comes out to Arizona, when we get blessed with a big Hollywood production to come out, I'll throw my hat in the ring. My agent will reach out, and sometimes it'll stick, sometimes it won't. I obviously love filmmaking, and so whatever part that I can be involved, if it's either a part of being on set as a crew member, or if I'm lucky enough to be in front of the camera. I did a film a couple years ago called The Wall that was shot in Tucson, pretty far south Tucson, about a border patrol agent that hasn't come out yet. And then amongst that, I've done a handful of other things since then, which have been quite a bunch of fun. But I've migrated really to directing and really trying to get into the kind of that realm. Acting is still a love for me. I will say, like, the hardest part for acting is really overacting, because it's very easy to overact. So as a filmmaker, I think it's really important that a lot of actors should have some experience in filmmaking, because it can lend to a ton of things when it comes to working well with the team, especially your director, the DP, and even in post-production. If you're knowledgeable about how to edit a film, you're probably going to be trying to incorporate what as an actor. Like, this is going to land really well. Maybe the editor will use this take, or I can see how this is going to lend well in the edit, so let me go and approach it this way. Or if it's like cameras and lenses, and the director says, I'm going to shoot this on a 35 1.4, here's the ISO. That should give you an idea of like, okay, it's going to be really shallow depth of field, my blocking should be right here, I shouldn't move. And so I think that's just super important, why more actors should try to get involved in filmmaking in any aspect. It'll lend to you being a better actor.
I was watching a conversation about Brando on the movie The Freshman, and he was telling all the young actors, Matthew Broderick and Penelope Ann Miller, and some of these others. He said, that they're going to want to make you do the tape a bunch of different times because they're going to want coverage, they're going to close up all this. He said, just screw them up. Screw this take up, screw that take up till you get to the close up, then nail it. And that's the one that they have to use. And he said that was a technique that he often used with directors, that when he couldn't reach an agreement with a director on a direction, he would just screw the take up until he got the camera where he wanted it, and then he would nail the part and then go, okay, great, moving on. And he's like, awesome, all right, here we go, which I thought was very funny. But kind of in that vein, is there any good feedback that you've ever gotten from a director? Like, is there great feedback you've gotten from a director? Do you like to get feedback from a director? Do you prefer to kind of search around until they tell you found it? I always like to ask that question because I'm interested in how actors work with directors.
I think feedback is good for any actor, even if you're a very experienced actor, because every project's going to be different. But I'll kind of go back to what I said earlier, just overacting, and I think that's the biggest thing. When I was on a project when I was 16 or 17, it was my first feature film. It was an indie film. I'm not sure if it ever really made its way out there, but we shot it for 30 days in the hot sun in Arizona, and it was quite a lengthy project. And I remember at one point, this is my first film, and I got the film because the lead actor had dropped out. He wasn't allowed to do it. It was very edgy, very like R-rated, and coming from like a very religious Christian background, I had to persuade my parents, like, I need to do this film. And they're like, I don't really think we want you to. So it was a hard conversation to have with my parents. And I remember on scene one day, I wasn't going to get into this, but I think it's important to say, we had a piece of pornography in the background, and the director was adamant that we have this in the scene. And I was like,
what was his reasoning, by the way, out of curiosity? Like, why was he, because he'll go, surely he went, no, it has to be there because blah 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 would want that there, or that would be part of his. Did he give you any of that?
It was more or less about, the film was already very edgy. It was kind of a Jesus in the suburbia kind of take, but it was kids selling drugs at 16, 17, loosely based on a true story. And I think that's where it kind of derived from, trying to kind of keep it true-ish.
Okay, so no kids that have porn on the walls type of thing.
Yeah, and we were in a tree house, and there's a girl with her legs spread open in the background in the back of the table. Granted, this is shot at like 2.4, whatever, but you can still see it. You can still clearly see what it is. And so I had a conversation with the director, and he gave me great feedback. Like, sometimes it's not up to you. Sometimes it's up to myself, the director, and you just kind of have to walk away and just agree with them. It's their project. You signed up for it. And that's ultimately what happened. It was a hard conversation he had to have with me. I didn't agree with it. I still think it was a little risky. I think the film could have probably gone out to have some legs if it didn't have so much of this kind of edgy stuff towards it. But it was trying to be like a live action kind of South Park with really dark tones. It's called Summertime Killers. I think there's a trailer out there on YouTube somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fun project to work on. Very young, and when you're jumping into the water so young, especially acting, you're trying to take in everything that you can, and so especially like knowledge from people who are experienced, and so you want to try to soak it all up, and that's really what I tried to do, and took a lot of that from what I learned on that film to who I am today as a filmmaker.
Nice. Out of curiosity, of course, I've gone through your IMDb. You made it onto a big set, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. That's a big ass film. That's a no joke, lot of money, friggin' film. I'm curious what that was like. I've never been on a set that big for sure, so I have to admit I'm curious what it was like.
Yeah, that was a crazy project. And it had just so happened that I was getting over a really bad breakup, and I think my agent emailed me, and she was like, "Hey, we have this project. It's in Atlanta." I don't think they told me what it was, and I was like, "Okay, all right, cool." So I sent in a self tape. I sent in all this stuff, and I heard back pretty much immediately. Like within 24 hours, they're like, "Hey, we liked it. The casting director liked it, but we need you out here. You need to hop on a plane tomorrow." So I literally hopped on a plane, I think that next day, and I was in Atlanta for I can't say exactly how 3 to 5 days. We shot pretty
Wow.
quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and my scene, I think I'm uncredited. I think they cut.
Yeah, you said you're uncredited, which is crazy that they would make you send in a self tape and then fly you out in 24 hours notice for an uncredited role. But I guess that's Hollywood, man.
It's crazy. I saw so much being filmed that never made
Mhm.
it into the film. That the whole, I won't spoil it, but the ending of the film was very different from what I saw when I was on set, because they were
That's
shooting
interesting.
a portion of the ending of the film,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very different. So when I went to the theater to see it, I'm like, okay, this is coming up. I'm super excited, and then they completely changed.
They
And
cut you out. They cut you out, bro.
you can still see my butt. I'm in the trailer, I think, longer than I am in the actual movie. It's funny, but it was cool. It was a really cool experience. When I was, I basically, there's a scene where it's a master shot of the high school, and I walk in with my skateboard, and I was standing next to this guy for a good portion of like this scene, which took like at least an hour or two, and I was just like loosely talking to him, and it was Jake, the director of the film.
Oh,
And I was
okay.
like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool!"
Oops.
Because I hadn't gotten the chance to talk to him at this point, and it was just really cool, just kind of seeing like a huge film from a small person's perspective, like play out. It kind of ruins movies a little bit too, because then you're like, "Oh man, so this is how they're shooting this." They use this high school now for like a dozen movies a year, so every time I'm like looking at a movie shot in Atlanta, like Stranger Things or any Marvel projects, I'm like, that's the same high school. They just kind of tweak it around a little bit, but that's movie magic for
So that was Jake Kasdan then that you were standing next to,
you.
whose dad Lawrence is. Well, we all know who Lawrence is, right? We all know who Lawrence Kasdan is, right? We all. Holy shit.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty
That's
crazy.
That's pretty amazing, man. That's a what's it, the Oracle of Bacon, man. That's the 6 degrees of separation. You're right there. Right there, rubbing elbows with Jake.
Yeah, it was a fun time. That's a cool. It was a cool movie too. I think it honestly became, I think, Sony's biggest film.
It's a good little remake of it. I honestly don't normally with a reboot or remake. I'm like that. I don't have any problems with that really. I thought it was kind of fun.
Yeah, they made another trilogy or two or three of them. But I think that's why they reshot the ending, is because they saw that this film actually had really good legs, and it became what it is today.
Yeah, makes sense.
So outside of film, what's another big creative outlet for you? Some people we've talked to, they're really into food. Other people are into sports. Is yours like more of like a video game obsession, as I can tell by the mask?
What makes you say that?
Yeah. Listeners, you can't see it, but the man behind him, it looks like a gamer's backdrop for a YouTube thing. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of stuff he's got. Nintendo and Atari and controllers mounted along the wall. Of course, everything's tastefully lit. But yeah, it's pretty impressive. That's a Game Boy. That's a color yellow Game Boy back there.
We've got quite a bit of stuff here. Stuff that I've collected over many a years.
That's a Nintendo 64. That's a 64 controller. Is that an early PlayStation?
Early PlayStation. I pretty much have
the PS2. Is it early PS2 that you've got down there?
Yeah, there's an early PS2. I think I have a majority of.
Do you have a Genesis?
I do have a Genesis. Yeah, and I just got the 2600 just a couple of days ago. Atari 2600. Yeah, I guess you could say video games are kind of like a hobby.
That's more than a hobby, sir.
Is it addiction? It could be. Yeah,
I mean, you spent 5 years making a documentary about a video game. I think maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not lie to yourself anymore.
It's a business expense, right? It's a write-off.
Exactly, it's a write-off.
That's what I'm trying to say nowadays. I was always fascinated by video games as a kid, and grew up with them, with my mom and my dad. I started with Galaga, and still probably my favorite game of all time. Galaga, so simple, easy. You can pick it up.
But it's also very hard. And especially once you get into those big levels where you've got, the double ships and the constant, I mean, that is a tough game. I like it. It's one of my favorites. It's my wife's favorite video game too, is Galaga.
Yeah, it's always packed. If you go to an arcade, usually Galaga's like always busy. It's hard to find an open arcade with Galaga, which is great because that attests to just like how awesome that game holds up now. You know,
Mhm.
early video game. And I think people are clamoring for more of that like simple stuff. With nowadays we have like open world video games that go like 30 to 100 hours, and I'm like overwhelmed. Like I can commit to like one like open world video game a year. Like I
Yeah,
go,
I have to play one and then finish it and then move to another one. I can't be playing multiples. I just finished Baldur's Gate a couple of months ago, and that was fantastic. Oh my god, as a D&D nerd since I was about 10, that I was just like, oh, it's all turn based and it has the rules and this is amazing. Oh my god, it was really good.
how long is Baldur's Gate 3? I've heard conflicting
Uh,
reports.
I put 110 hours into it before I beat it. And honestly, I skipped some stuff that I like. If I go back through it and I'm really thorough, and because I'm a bit of a guy who I'm a completionist. I like to go all the side quests and all the main quests, as much of it as I can. There are some things like if you play a good character or a bad character, of course the game is different. But yeah, I mean, I could probably I would say probably another solid 15 hours into it, probably if I wanted to go back and really cover everything. That's a fantastic game, and to attest to its gameplay, I started another game immediately after I beat it because I was like, well, okay, I want to try it now with a different character, right? I want to try with a different alignment. I want to try with different responses. So,
Right. That's how they
yeah.
get you. I just did the same with
Mhm.
Diablo. I finally beat Diablo 4, and I'm like, oh, I feel good. Wash my hands out. You want to play more? Here, we're
Yes.
introducing a new class.
Sure, why not? Yeah, that's hilarious.
Did you ever see the King of Kong documentary about
Fistful of Quarters.
beating the Donkey Kong world record? I always thought that was a fascinating one.
I did. Yeah, it's a great video game documentary. There's really not a whole lot of like really good video game documentaries.
Not too many. Yeah.
Well, and that one kind of blew the gaming world up. Steve Wiebe and the other dude, the Twin Galaxies has been found to be falsifying records for years now, and those two guys, that guy, the Walter dude, and that other guy were in cahoots, and it was like, wow, because if without that documentary, we'd have never known. And that dude's still the greatest Pac-Man player and Donkey Kong player of all time, and it's all a lie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really think that they could probably make another documentary, like a follow-up to
I agree completely.
it's and I've actually talked to my business partner about that. I was like, what if we get in, because that was a really
Yes.
inspiration for us. Was King of Kong.
Mm-hmm.
It was also one of the earlier like video game documentaries that I think came out, looks like 2007. So
Yeah, it's a while ago. Yeah, but it's sort of the penultimate. Like it sort of sets the stage and really puts the bar really high on a really great video game documentary because it's compelling stuff.
Yeah.
When you watch Steve finally show up to play live, and people are walking by him and giving him the cold shoulder and shit, while he's getting to a damn kill screen, and people are going, "It's gonna get to a kill screen, get over here!" It's just like that's compelling stuff, man.
Yeah, I think where we're at today with Billy Mitchell, it's even arguably crazier than it was in Fistful of Kong. Like all the
Mhm.
controversy and the back and forth,
Mhm.
the lawsuits. I mean, I'm assuming they'll probably make a follow up here. Yeah, definitely one of the best video game documentaries. Netflix has a really good one too called High Score. And
I've seen that one. That one's really good. Yeah.
really well produced, and they threw a lot of money into it. It's very like retro themed. So if you love like early 80s 90s video games, kind of the start of video games. I can't remember who narrates it. It's either Charles Martinet or I think the gentleman from Lord of the Rings. But Sean Austin. But it really,
Aston. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was really great. Thank you for correcting me. Really great video game documentary. I think it's 4 or 5 parts. Don't correct
Nice.
me. Don't call me out on that. But yeah, we need more video game documentaries.
Right. I know Netflix had another one about the legendary ET cartridges that were
Yes.
buried.
Yes, that was a good one.
too.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I haven't
That
seen
was
that yet.
fantastic.
But
Oh, that's good. I think
gotta
it might
watch
only
that.
be like maybe an hour or so, but it's a fun one. I think there's a semi follow up to the Fistful of Quarters. I think it's about Mappy. I know they follow another guy who hung out at that arcade, and he was going to beat one of those games. Right? I think it's.
You have a copy.
Thing. Oh, there you go. You got the cartridge, but it's like your
I'll
tail
play
gets
it.
longer and longer, and if you hit your tail, you die. Was the whole point of the game. I don't know if it's called Mappy or Mappy's not the right name. But anyways, I think there is some kind of a semi follow-up to Fistful of Quarters out there, at least following another character from the arcade.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
I'll have to look that one back up. It'll be in the show notes. So, so I mean, you only worked with us for a few days, but there's probably enough time to have a favorite moment on the set. Can you think of any?
I think that hug moment was so cool. You know, we chatted about that earlier, but that was a really cool moment because it wasn't also like a part of the scene. I felt the love from all the actors there, like, you know, because everybody kind of came together and it's like, hey, sorry for picking on you and your character throughout the movie. And it was almost like, hey, Tad, you know, this is also from us, the people behind the character. We're sorry for, you know, kind of berating you for the last like 2 days on set. And I was like, okay.
They were kind of in character for that, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I mean, they didn't go overboard, but they, you know, they were basically like, we don't like this guy, and kind of gave you some ribbing over it. That was hilarious. Yeah. You were a good sport about that. I appreciate that. It was
a good time. Felt the love on set for sure.
So I have a weird question I like to ask everybody. So some of my favorite films ever made are about music, not necessarily musicals, but they're about music or bands or anything like that. And so it could be a musical, but do you have a favorite movie that centers around music or is about music or about a band or you know, possibly a musical? But like an example would be That Thing You Do, Amadeus, which is about, you know, Mozart.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, and you could tell me if I'm completely off here with what I have in mind. It's slightly about music, but I mean, music is a big part of the film, and really,
that's probably good too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's Scott Pilgrim. I think it's just
that's very centered around music. He's in a band, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. It's just the art style, art direction of that film just centers.
Edgar Wright directed the shit out of that movie. It's ridiculous. He lost his mind on that thing.
I just watched the Netflix animated version, or the animated take, whatever you call it, on Scott Pilgrim, and it's really good. It takes a couple episodes to get into it, but I really enjoyed it. It actually takes the film and like still makes it canon, but still retells the story in a very unique way, all told through animation. And they got all the actors back, so as you're like listening, you're like, oh my gosh, wow, that's the actual character, and they came back. And if you haven't checked it out, definitely recommend it. It's a good time on Netflix.
I like that film quite a bit. I especially because I always love a film, even if I don't like the content or it doesn't really hit me. But if it's something I've just never seen before, in a way, you know, the movie's just made in a way that I've never seen and probably won't again. You got to just kind of give it the nod.
Those are always the best movies.
You watch it, yeah. You're just like, I've never seen anybody do that before. It's like it combined a comic book and live action and being in a band and all this shit all together, and also wrapped it in its own world, right? Where, you know, the when they have the battle of the bands and they're playing and the giant gorilla pops up and the giant snake pops up, it's like, this is fucking wildly creative. And I'm sure that's partly due to the comic book, but you know, wow.
Yeah, I mean, from the start of the movie, when the Universal logo spins and it's in 8-bit or 16-bit, I forget which, and that just sets the precedent for the rest of the movie. It's a shame that the film didn't, I think, box office wise, do as well as Universal.
I agree. It's a cult classic, though. I mean, it's got a strong following. Out of curiosity, being a gamer, what did you think of Ready Player One?
Yeah, Ready Player One was. I was a big fan of the book.
Same. And reading it, there was like, there's no way.
right. And then
there's no way.
Spielberg is attached to it, and you're like, oh my god,
maybe.
Right. Yeah. And and when it came out, I think any property that you adapt from a book, it's always obviously very tough because you have to change things. Not everything is going to work. And I think Ready Player One was one of those books where it's like, I liked the book better than I did the film.
Right.
But that's just, you have like this idea already in your head. But for
like the IPs are everywhere in that book, and I'm reading the book going, there's no way that you're not going to get Tojo Godzilla. There's no friggin' way. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get a Mecha Godzilla. and they pulled some of that off, but they also were smart and like, well, we're going to use a universal monster. Well, we'll use King Kong. Well, we'll use, but they got the Back to the Future in there, and they got some other things that were pretty important. I don't know. I thought he, pulled it off because there was just like, there's no way you're going to have to wrangle IPs from all around the world to do this. Unbelievable.
Oh yeah, when you've got the power of Spielberg and Warner Brothers money, I mean, a whole lot is possible. I heard they're making a sequel to Ready Player 2,
Ooh,
which
okay.
I think Spielberg is not attached as a director, but I'm excited to see that be adapted because the second one is pretty good itself too.
I haven't read the Ready Player 2. There's a second book.
Oh yeah, there's a second book. Yep.
Okay, I knew he'd made Armada, but I hadn't caught up with the Ready Player 2. I'll have to read that.
Armada's great too. Yeah, and they're supposedly adapting that as a film as well. But who knows? It's been on I think a shelf somewhere collecting dust for many a years. That's a great book too. If the listeners haven't read that and they like video game inspired arcade shooters, great book.
Okay. What else you got, Marty?
Well, that's all of our main questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of blew through that. Do you have anything that you want to plug? Any projects that are coming up or things coming out? I know you have the long-awaited Pondo documentary, of course. But...
Yeah, take a few minutes to talk about yourself.
Oh, well, appreciate it. Yeah, well, no, it's been so great to chat with you guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's wild. I'd like to get you back on the set. You were a lot of fun, and talking to you, it's like, oh yeah, I remember. It was a blast hanging out with that guy.
When I rewatched it, I was like, you always as an actor, and I'm sure, even as a filmmaker, you go in and you're like, why did I do things this way? Or why did I do it this way? So when I was rewatching it, I was like, ooh, why did I deliver this line that way? It's cringy. And maybe it's me. I've grown a lot as an actor and a filmmaker since then. I mean, it's 7 years ago. So, you have
a perfect reaction where Julie looks at you and she says, can't you at least try smiling? And you smile and you go, how's this? And she goes, you look like you're getting a proctology exam. And you go, perfect. And it's just no perfect on the timing of it. It's just mwah, chef's kiss all over that.
I think we were, at some point when you're shooting in the sun in a hot car, I don't remember if the air conditioning was on or not, or if the engine was running, but I imagine we were probably like, okay, let's start to wrap this up. Let's get this take here. And I'm just like, all right, I'm going to be dry and witty about it, and little sarcasm's coming across here. But
yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, that's a great film. I really enjoyed what you guys put together. It was a even from outside the perspective looking in, a fun comic book infused movie. Like the humor was funny. Everybody was on point casting wise, minus myself. But
you were right on point too.
It was a cool property. So I'm curious, where is Revenge of Zoe? I know you were talking earlier. Where is that gonna live? I know you're talking distribution wise for you were saying a trip.
Yeah, we're in talks with a distributor now, and we're not gonna mention any names or anything, but we're in talks with a distributor to hopefully pick up all 3 films because it's a trilogy. So we've pulled Revenge of Zoe off of Tubi in anticipation of hopefully that deal. So that would put Writing Frenzy, which is the first film, Zoe, which is the one you were in the middle, and then Love Song of William H. Shaw at the end, all out there as a package deal. So we're pretty excited about that. We're really hoping that comes through in the next couple months.
That's exciting. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I know we were chatting earlier, but yeah, distribution it's a beast. We've been chatting for the last couple of years just with loose distribution partners to get Going Postal out there. I think we originally were trying to get the film out and done in 2022, and then we were reevaluated. We got some more finances, and we're 6 figures deep into the film now.
Wow!
So it's been quite a financially draining project, but it's been it's great. So the goal is to land on one of the top 5 streaming platforms: the Netflix's, Amazon's, Hulu's, Peacock. I mean, there's so many options, and I think we're really striving for more content now, especially after all the strikes that happened last year. More studios are looking for more content, which is really cool because that gives us, the smaller people, a little bit more power. And I think it's still possible. I was just watching yesterday that Napoleon Dynamite was made for like 400,000, and it ended up making like $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it became a cult classic and just a huge indie movie. I still think that's possible for the smaller filmmakers out there. And you look at
Sure.
Kevin Smith's, yeah, he's kind of
Yeah.
the director in that realm.
Yeah, the dude who made SLC Punk, with Marty and I, we reviewed that on our podcast. And I think he spent what 300,000, 400,000 on that. And
Wow.
the guy who made Swimming with Sharks, he spent 400 or 500 grand on that. And those are, I mean, Swimming with Sharks in particular, while it's kind of a dated movie as an indie film, I think it stands up pretty well. And with that much money put into it, it's pretty impressive. They're out there. You just got to know what you're doing. And if you're making a movie and you don't know at the end how you're going to get it in front of people, like that's a problem that you need to solve, like sooner rather than later, because you don't want to, we've done it in the past where you finish the film and you're like, all right, what are we going to do with this? You want to have a plan, at least
some sort of marketability,
somebody to talk to, and a festival run can get you some of that too. Like we've been doing a festival run. That's sort of how we've talked to several different, we've sales agents, we've talked to distributors, this and that. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a plan for after the film, right? Like, all right, it's done. Now what are we going to do?
Totally. Yeah. Because you get questions, right? Like, hey, where's the film? Where can I watch it? And obviously every artist wants their work to be seen, especially as an actor, as a filmmaker. That's the point of filmmaking.
That's such a painful question. Where can I see your movie? You're like, oh.
I asked Marty the other day. I was like, "Hey, Marty, where can I see Revenge of Zoe?"
and we could have pointed you to Tubi up until about a week or two ago.
I saw that. Right.
Yeah. Link. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the process of Tubi? I'm curious, as far as like a financial proposition. Are they taking your film for free? Are you getting any financial revenue from Tubi?
We went through a distributor for it, so we went through Brink. There was a small. He put in some. I don't know. I think it was marketing and probably some fees for deliverables into Tubi, and then Tubi paid him back in ad revenue as it went. We didn't do terribly, but we didn't do great.
Yeah.
But it did generate money, and I think that's the key is like if you really have a decent marketing strategy and you've got a decent film that you think you can hook, if you can find your audience and hook them with it, Tubi's not a terrible option at all. You get your platform on, you get it out there, it's ad supported, which means you've got money coming in. And then you start your drip campaign, your ad campaigns, whatever that you're going to do to drive people towards Tubi. I don't think, especially now, I think it's going to be, back in the day, there were different windows, right? Like you had a theatrical window, then you had a DVD window or a VHS DVD window, then a cable window, so on, right? I think the windows kind of now are starting, like you said, top 5 streamers.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first window. If I can't make that window, my second window is Fast. Right. And if I can't make free ad supported television, my third window is YouTube, putting it on Amazon Prime by myself, et cetera, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So you have these, it's just the streaming windows are different now. They're not, and maybe they're not really windows. They're more like tiers, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You're shooting for tier 1,
And we were only,
I hope you make it, man. Shit.
We were only national distribution. If we had international distribution and been on the Tubis throughout the world, which is what we're hoping next go around, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, this distribution is supposed to be worldwide for English speaking, so that would put us in Australia, England.
And maybe when you hit one of the top 5s with Postal, it'll go international as well and be on Netflix, Australia, etc.
Yeah,
that's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? It's crazy. Postal is uber popular in Russia. It's like Grand Theft Auto scale of
there you go.
Popularity. So that's a big hope. I know Amazon takes
Are you looking into Russian subtitles and all that stuff for it then?
Yeah, Russian subtitles, Russian dubs, Russian subtitles, the whole kind of and then it's got a property, in Mexico and in international. I mean, it's a huge property. We shot the film in at least half a dozen countries, and we started during 2020 when we started like really boots on the ground filming. And so then COVID hit, and we were like, "Crap, where do we go?" And it just became a conversation of okay, well, we can't actually travel to like Germany to like interview Uwe Boll anymore. We can't travel to, you know, the UK or to Spain or to Poland where our animation team is. Instead, we had to outsource. So we would like find camera operators and really good teams that we really connected with to go and do these interviews for us.
That makes sense.
And then we would hop on like a Zoom call or like, you know, a Zencast or a Google Meet, and then we would interview the talent via, you know, the Wi-Fi via there, and then have their eyeline directed into the camera A or B. Yeah, it was a really crazy time. I think filmmaking was definitely changed, obviously, during the pandemic, but it was more affordable to actually do that. Granted, you lose out on a little bit of the creative aspect, because then it's like you're putting everything into the hands of somebody
else. Sure.
And
yeah, more third party.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if they're going to show up. So it's like, okay, we're kind of really hoping that everything pans out. And thankfully everybody was really excited to work on this. But yeah, filming internationally during COVID was quite the experience, because, you know, I'd have to be up at 4 a.m. for 10 a.m. interview in the UK. And so we're having these super late nights, and they're going like 2-3 hours long. And if the team's not set up, like, you have to be there on the call to really chat with the talent and kind of like, you know, kind of just play for time while the camera operators are setting up.
Been there.
Yeah, that's the filmmaking process. It's fun. It wouldn't change it for the world. It's fun. Even the long 11-hour, 14-hour days, you know, we're in it for the arts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different kind of high. Like, it's like working 11 to 14 hours at a job where you're making money, and then working 11 to 14 hours on a project that you're excited about. It's like night and day. One's like a drug, and the other one is just like a drudge. You know, I mean, it's so different. Like, I mean, I can remember, you know, Marty and I would come back from 12-hour days, 13-hour days, and we'd spend 3 or 4 hours looking at footage, and talking, and then it's 3 a.m. It's like, well, we got 10 a.m., 8 a.m. Okay, I'm gonna go to bed. You know, wake me up, and you just do it all over again, because it's so engrossing, and it's so awesome. You don't want to stop. You know, if I could go from set to set to set, just like, all right, what are we shooting? What's this project? Great, done. All right, what's the next project? Yeah, I'm gonna fly out. Okay, I would do that as a life completely.
Yeah,
I maybe take a week off in between stuff and just thing to thing. I love being on set more than I love anything else.
Just for somebody to watch your film on an iPhone sitting on the couch while they, you know, either have to pay attention, or that's what I always am thinking. I'm like, my girlfriend, she's sitting like on the couch watching movies on her phone, and I'm like, that's Oppenheimer. Watch it on the TV. We got a 77-inch TV. What are you doing? But that's filmmaking for you. People are going to consume regardless. But that's the whole point, is you know, to enjoy the content however you want, really.
All right.
Hey, if you really dig Oppenheimer on an iPhone, knock yourself out. You know,
you haven't seen it till you've seen it only 5 inches big.
They have a theater in my hometown called Flicks Brew House, and they have what they call Flicks Picks, and so they show like on the 25th we're going to see for the 25th anniversary, we're going to go see Jurassic Park. And so they have a themed menu, and it's a microbrewery, so you get a beer, and it's assigned seating and really nice seats. And that's, to me, I like, at this point, that's the way to go see a movie. Like, there's just no other way. If you're going to go see a movie, go see a movie. And it's really great to see all these old films. Like, I've seen The Godfather, The Thing. You know, they just did Purple Rain for Prince's birthday, which was like, that was like going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. People screaming at the screen and dancing and singing along. It was fantastic. Yeah,
because you don't have the distractions of, you know, being on your phone or
right. Exactly.
It's the beauty of a movie theater. And it's a shame that so many movies this year seem to be not doing so well. You know, Furiosa just came out, and I don't think it hit its targeted budget for what it was aiming for. But then you see
Inside Out 2 is crushing it.
Right,
Bad
which
Boys
is crazy
did good too. So
yeah, Bad Boys did. Yeah. Garfield did great, but Furiosa didn't do well. You know, it's weird. They're gonna have to figure it out, man. Like, they're gonna have to figure out what audiences want. The demographics are shifting. Obviously, kids movies are still going to do well. Stop doing prequels. Hollywood, you don't know how to do prequels. You've never made a good prequel. Stop doing it. You know, stop it. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
that should be rule number one. No prequels. Yeah, I can't think of a prequel that I've seen that's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
No, I mean, even the prequel, the Star Wars prequels. I mean, it gives you the best Sith Lord of all time, but it's still in the worst movie with the worst character of all time. You mean I have to sit through Jar Jar to get to the really? Come on.
I think for a younger generation, obviously, episode one was like, because I grew up with episode one. I mean, I
Right.
grew up with the originals, but episode one was the first one I saw in theaters, and so that has
Oh,
a
okay.
special place in my heart. Jar
Sure.
Jar aside, like, and they just did the 3D, or not the 3D. They did I think it was the remaster that came out a couple of months ago, which I heard was amazing. I went and saw it in 3D years ago when it
I
came
saw
out.
that 3D one. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, that was great. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. You know, that
Yeah.
might be the exception is the prequels
I mean,
for Star Wars.
Duel of the Fates is the best lightsaber battle out of all of them. Darth Maul is I mean, to me, is way more menacing than Darth Vader ever could be, and that fight between the three of them is just, especially once he kills Qui-Gon and they separate him with the red shields, and he's pacing, and Ben can't wait to get at this friggin' Sith Lord. It's just it's a masterpiece. And then of course we have to go back to Misa Wusa Hisa, it's like, oh Jesus.
Hey,
Why?
that's pretty good. If George Lucas or Dave Filoni needs a Jar Jar coming back, we got to get him your number.
Still better than 7, 8, and 9, but that's a topic for another podcast.
Oh, we could go into.
We could argue about that all day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, we're on a different trajectory, different Star Wars nowadays than the ones that I grew up with, and I know the ones that you guys grew up with too.
So we kind of, and we tend to do this on this show, but we kind of sidetracked you off of plugging yourself. So is there anything that you want to plug?
I appreciate it. Yeah, Going Postal, the Legacy Foretold, it is coming out this year. We don't have an exact date for distribution, but Fine Cut is happening in the next couple of weeks. So I'd say go ahead and follow us on we have TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the socials. It's going Postal Doc. As soon as we have any updates as far as releases, we'll let our audience know. We are planning a physical, like Blu-ray. We're planning on like a deluxe edition. So we're planning out like everything
Like deleted scenes and extra stuff for the interviews and all that stuff. Cool.
Oh, yeah. We shot about close to 20 terabytes of footage for the film.
Oh boy.
So sifting through everything. We've been in post-production for 2 years, and I've had 4 associate editors working with me, and just sifting like through footage, culling through interviews. It's been quite a timely project.
Wow.
And so we've got probably hundreds of hours of stuff that we can like create into special features. And we're having those discussions now about like, what should we do here? We're putting out like little bits and pieces of the film on our TikTok to kind of see how that's doing. And it's doing pretty well. We're getting thousands and thousands of views, which is really nice, and seeing people's response. And hopefully it excites people. We just posted one yesterday of John St. John, who's the voice of Duke Nukem. And he's in the film talking about his experience. He's the voice of Postal Dude in Postal 4. So it's pretty cool. It's crazy to see everything that's transpired and the people that I've met and my business partner have met over this journey. It's opened so many doors, met so many like cool actors, directors, and that's just the beauty of filmmaking is just meeting people you never think that you would. So yeah, Going Postal Doc on our socials.
Folks, we'll have him back on once he's huge. He can't resist. He can't tell us no because we got him first. He was in our movie first. He owes us at this point. So once it explodes and everybody wants to talk to Tad Sallee again, we'll bring him back on and it'll be like, hey, dude, now that you're famous, give us jobs or whatever.
Well, when the trilogy Revenge of Zoe,
right?
Well, like, hey, we'll be one and the same here. We'll see each other at those big Hollywood parties.
Sure we will.
Probably a blood sacrifice or something. You never know.
That's the Hollywood party I want to go to.
Definitely, guys. Well, thanks so much for having me on. This was a
great
pleasure.
to have you.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And it's great to see you. And really, seriously, good luck with your doc. And if there's anything that we can do, like when it comes out, or if there's any social media, anything that we can push for you or anything like that, just let us know.
Definitely. We're going to be having a premiere probably in Tucson. So I'll let you guys know. The rest of the world.
Right on. All right, guys, look forward to going postal.
All right.
Not us, the documentary.